Good morning, 8th graders, and I hope that you had a wonderful Thanksgiving break. I really enjoyed mine, but now I'm looking forward to getting back and having a couple weeks with you guys. And we'll have 3 weeks that we meet before Christmas break starts. We're going to be doing some fun things. We will finish up our noun chapter this week, and then we will move into the next chapter and probably won't quite finish that before Christmas break. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at noun clauses, which is lesson 41 on page 207. So if you don't have your book, paper, and pencil, go ahead and get those items and hit pause on the video. And when you're ready, come on back. So today we have talked about clauses quite a bit already this year. We saw them in the introductory chapter, and sometimes there's a little confusion. Is this a phrase or is it a clause? But by now you should be familiar with clauses and know that they are very different from phrases. They are a group of words. That's generally the only thing phrases and clauses have in common. Clauses can or will have a subject and a verb in them. And there are two kinds of clauses, an independent and a dependent clause. The dependent, most of you got this right in on your testing. The dependent can't stand alone, and the independent can stand alone. And so hopefully that is all review. So now we're specifically looking at noun clauses, because we can have adverb clauses and we can have adjectival clauses, but we are looking at noun clauses. And so let's take a look at our infamous gray box. And there's a couple of things that I want to highlight here. So if you look at your gray box on page 207, it does highlight that these have to be dependent clauses. And it is likely going to be, or will have to be, a part of a larger group of words in the sentence. So we're looking at dependent, not independent. The clause, the whole big thing, remember pedestal Pete, can either go in the subject spot, the direct object spot, the predicate nominative spot. It can also be in the object of a preposition, and we're going to see that in the diagramming piece. Is likely a part of a larger clause that is independent. Now, the reason that I say likely and then I hesitate to say that this is always the case, sometimes if you use a colon, a semicolon, a dash, hyphens, you could end up having a dependent clause that sits there all by itself, and it wouldn't make sense unless it was connected with a larger sentence. But anyway, let's just go with most of the time that it is going to be part of a larger independent clause. So that's like pedestal Pete having a child, and his little child is part of the bigger picture. And so hopefully you'll be able to see that when we get to the diagramming. It is always diagrammed on a pedestal, and there can be multiple pedestals. I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot of them just for simplicity, but just remember pedestal Pete, he's going to hold those noun clauses. Okay, so let's get started, and most of what I have on this PowerPoint is actually directly from your book. So instead of trying to make up new and fancy examples, I'm just going to pull them straight out of your book so that you can refer back to them. So what they're showing us here, I've actually pulled out the text that is just like a quarter of the way down on page 208. And here we have the Bible clearly states that God created the world in 6 days. Well, I find that it's really helpful if you ask your labeling questions and if you find your subject and verbs first. And remember, in all of our clauses, there's going to be a subject and verb. So you might have to look for multiples. So we want to look for the main idea, and that's the broad, big clause. And then we look for the little piece. So the main broad clause is the Bible clearly states. That's the big overarching. But what does it state? And we can ask the what question. The Bible states what? That God created the world in 6 days. We can't pull any of those words out to stand alone as a direct object. The Bible clearly states that. The Bible clearly states God. The Bible clearly states created. None of those can stand alone. So we need the whole big group of words. Pedestal Pete comes on the scene and he holds them all for us. In the next one, Jesus said, "Ye are the light of the world." Well, Jesus said is the broader piece. And what did he say? You are the light of the world. This would also be a direct object situation, and Pedestal Pete's going to stand in the direct object space with all those words. It's like he's carrying the burdens of all of these words on him. And then here's another one. Our desires should be what? Our desires should be that our lights are shining clearly. Again, we can't pull out any of those words individually. Okay, let's go to our next slide. And and I've already mentioned this, that if you will label ahead of time, you will do so much better at this. Now, where it gets tricky is when the clause is the subject. In the previous examples, they were the direct object. Those I think are pretty easy. But when the clause is the subject, that's when kind of everybody's heads explode. So let's look at 2 of these. Wherever God leads is the best place to be. Well, we can look at this and we know that we have wherever God leads. That all needs to go together because we can't say wherever is the best place to be. Doesn't make sense. We also can't say God is the best place to be. Still doesn't make sense. Leads is the best place. So we need all of those words together. But we need to recognize that all of them together are the subject. Wherever God leads is, and then the best place to be, you're going to have a direct object going on there, or a predicate nominative adjective. So you just have to recognize that whole piece, and they put it in parentheses, I like to underline it, and that's your total subject. Within the clause, though, you have a subject and a verb. God leads. So wherever God leads is the whole thing that gets matched with this verb. But within the clause itself, God leads is the subject verb. That's where it just gets like your mind wants to explode. Okay, the next one. Whoever loves the Lord will surely obey his word. So again, we're going to look at some clue words that are really going to help you in just a second. But they've underlined the verb will obey, not surely, because that is an adverb. Will obey, though. And so again, we have a group of words here. Whoever will surely obey his word. Loves will surely obey his word. Lord will surely obey his word. Doesn't make sense by itself, so we need the whole thing. Pedestal Pete is going to carry it, and then will obey. Within the clause, though, we also have a subject verb, whoever loves. Subject 1, subject 2, subject 1, verb 1. This whole thing is subject 2, verb 2. And I'm just giving it numbers to just differentiate. All right, let's move to what I think might help you. And that is a little chart of introductory words. And I would highly suggest that you take a picture of this and that you, again, if you're like, I love to tape things like on my binder, inside my binder. So tape it there because it could help you discover these noun clauses. So this is part of the analyzing and diagramming the noun clauses, and they give you some things to think about as you analyze different clauses. And I read through those, but I'm going to spend time on the introductory words, which are right here, and I took it straight from the book. So when you have who, whoever, whom, whomever, what, whatever, or which, it is going to be functioning as the subject, a complement, or the object of a preposition. And this is within the noun clause or within the sentence. Then if you have whose or which, it's generally going to be an adjective clause, or it's going to be functioning as an adjective. How, why, where, whenever, whenever. Yeah, I've got all those mixed up. You're going to have a modifier of a verb. And if you have the words that, if, or whether, it's a conjunction. It's just joining the word. And sometimes we'll have no specific function. So hold on to this. The main thing that I use it for is that I keep all of these words in mind as I'm looking for the clause. Usually, if you find it, you're going to know what it's doing in the sentence. So the function in the clause, you probably won't even need that. But if you can keep these words in mind, and I don't know, whatever, they're about 20 here. If you can keep those words in mind, then you're going to be able to find a clause a lot more quickly, and you'll probably know what it's doing in the sentence. Okay, let's take a look at the diagramming. I think this is one of those cases where if you can actually look at the diagramming, remember pictures are how some people learn. So we're going to look at some diagramming, and I think that you will then see how all of this is working together. Okay, so man cannot fully explain how a honeybee makes honey. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop right back to my introductory words. And I'm going to look down over them. I don't think I had any of those. I didn't have one of these. I think I had a how. Okay, let's go back and see. Did I have a how in here? And I certainly did. Man cannot fully explain how a honeybee makes honey. All right, so I want to look at this whole sentence. And I want to first find my main subject and my main verb. Well, man can explain. That's the broad thing. Then we look at, well, what can they explain? So man cannot fully explain. Now the can or the not part, remember, that is an adverb, and it's going to go down here. So man cannot explain. And then we have honeybee, how a honeybee makes honey. Well, we look for the subject and verb. Who makes? The honeybee. What does the honeybee do? Makes. Honeybee makes what? Honey. If you can ask those questions, what does the honeybee do? Makes. Then you find the subject, and then you ask the what. Honeybee makes what? Honeybee makes honey. Now, it just told us the how would be the modifier of the verb. So, knowing that information, I'm going to pop it down here. Here's where the how goes. It doesn't go on here. This would be where a conjunction goes. But it goes right here. It tells me in the chart. That's why this chart is so helpful. It tells me in the chart it's the modifier of the verb. Modifier of the verb, diagonal right off the verb. If it was a modifier of the subject or complement, it would come here or off the complement. Okay, let's look at another one. All right, let's see which one this is. Whoever wrote this poem had an excellent command of words. And again, all of these are on page 210 in your book. I've picked out a few, but I would suggest that you take a look at them. Just put the examples in your notebook. Put them in your notes. You may use your notes on a test, and this is very helpful. All right, So I'm going to look back at my little chart of words. I've just read the sentence. I'm going to go back to my chart of words. Ah, right there. First one. Who, whoever, whom, and who was the first word. Or excuse me, whoever was the first word. So I'm going to look over in my little function and it says, oh, subject, complement, object of the preposition. Okay, so I have to figure all that out. But if I have a whoever or a wherever, it's generally going to be in the subject spot. So this is where Pedestal Pete transfers right over here to the subject spot. There he is, standing strong. Nice straight line. This is not a verbal. Remember, verbals he waves. It's not a verbal. It's a noun clause. So his arms are straight. Now I'm looking back at my little chart and it says that who and whoever, whom, all of those words are likely going to be subject, complement, or object of the preposition. In this case, whoever is the subject. So you figure out, whoever did what? Whoever wrote. And then you can kind of sound those off together to make sure it makes sense. Whoever wrote what? Poem. This is just modifying poem. It's directing you. It's a particular poem. Whoever wrote this poem. And then we quickly look and fill in the rest. Whoever wrote this poem had command. Had what? Had command. Don't mistake this as part of the verb. And in the early stages of diagramming, people will often do that because it's generally a verb. In this case, it's used as a noun. Had what? Had command. Okay, now let's look at one that I find very interesting. And this one is the last one on page 211. Give this coat to whomever is the owner. Or to whoever is the owner. Sorry about that. Now this one is an imperative. It's a command. And we know that with our commands, you are going to have an understood you. So there it is. It's in parentheses because it's almost like it's invisible. It is invisible. So it's understood. What should you do? Give. You give what? Coat. But then we have to whoever is the owner. Now this is where this one gets confusing, but you've got to remember, maybe you have your preposition little chart in your notebook and you realize that to is a preposition. And so we're going to draw a big preposition slide, to, and then on our level piece here, we have to put this whole clause. Whoever is, and here's our predicate nominative backslash because we have this linking verb. And if you look over in your little chart of words, so you can slip back to that, whoever can be the object of the preposition. And so it's going to start our object of the preposition. So that is the only one that this little group of words, who, whoever, whom, whomever, what, whatever, and which, can be part of a prepositional phrase. So just be aware of that as you are diagramming. I want you to keep these examples front and center as you do the homework. I also want you to try the class practice with me. So I'd like for you to go to class practice, and I want you to pause for just a minute. Pause the video after I'm finished with the instructions, and then write down in class practice A, you're supposed to identify the noun clauses. And if it's not a noun clause, then you just write not a noun clause. But if it's doing something in the sentence, tell me what it's doing. That's half the battle with figuring out noun clauses in the diagramming. We will be reviewing this on Wednesday, so look forward to that. But I want you to hit pause and then once you've done class practice A, then come back and I'll give you the answers. Okay, if you're back, then I'm assuming that you completed class practice A, and the answers then are, let's get there. So in the first one, Haman was furious when he saw Mordecai sitting at the gate. So they underlined when he saw, so we have a subject and a verb in there, and we can look at our chart of words, and when can start, but what we want to figure out here is this a noun function? In a sentence, is it a noun function? And if we look closely at this, Haman was furious when he saw Mordecai sitting at the gate. This is an adverb function that is actually modifying the verb. And so it is not a noun clause. And that's why I'm making you do these, because sometimes it gets really confusing. But just take a guess. If you're not sure, just take a guess. All right, let's look at the next one. That Mordecai would not bow showed his loyalty to God. Okay, so here we have that Mordecai would not bow. Underline. Well, this one is the subject, so it is a noun clause. Mordecai faithfully honored God in whatever he did. So we have Mordecai honored, but then we have in whatever we did here, and the word in is a preposition. So it's an object of the preposition. So look for those preposition clues. Haman's pride was what brought his downfall. So pride was is a linking verb. So what comes after linking verbs? Predicate nominatives or adjectives. So this one is a predicate nominative. He decided that he would seek the Jews' destruction. He decided what? Well, that's a direct object. What Haman did not consider was God's sovereignty and power. So here we have what Haman did not consider, and it comes right before the verb. So it's going to be the subject. Was is a linking verb, and then everything else after is going to be predicate nominative or adjective. Whoever rises against God's people sets himself against God. Well, it's at the beginning. Most of those are going to be subjects. Whoever rises against God sets is the verb then. God can certainly humble any man who exalts himself. We have the who, and we know that it can start a noun clause, but also remember that which clauses can be adjective clauses, and this one is an adjective clause, so it is not a noun clause. Just like in the first one, when it is completing an adverb function, it cannot be a noun clause. So the first and the last ones were not noun clauses, and just be aware of that. So you've got your little chart of clue words. We went over some examples, and hopefully this will help you as you do your homework, but we will go over some additional diagramming in class on Wednesday. So until I see you on Wednesday, I hope that you have a wonderful day.